Welcome everyone, and hello, thank you so much for joining us today at our Foster Care Week Getting to Know Agencies and Foster Carers live stream. We are thrilled to have you joining us for this event. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are all gathered here today. I'm on Boonwurrung country here in Melbourne Southeast, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and to any Aboriginal people that we have joining us today as well. Sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So welcome again. My name's Danielle. I'm the manager of Fostering Connections, Victoria's statewide recruitment and attraction service for foster carers. And it's Foster Care Week. This year, Foster Care Week runs from Sunday, the 12th of September to Saturday, the 18th of September. And this is an annual week of celebration, recognising foster carers and the invaluable contribution that they make to the lives of children, young people and families in our community. It's a wonderful time to celebrate these incredible carers who provide their support, their care, who open their homes and who are looking out for those around them. Today, we have an opportunity to speak to one of Victoria's foster carers, as well as workers from some of the Victorian foster care agencies that work with and support foster carers. This is going to be a panel discussion where each of our panellists will be providing insights into what it's like working with and being a foster carer. For those joining us, please feel free to pop any questions that you have in the chat. We'll try to work through some of those towards the end of the discussion. I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Glenda, Sharon, Tania and Francoise, and I'll ask our panellists to introduce themselves. Let's start with Glenda. Hi.
Oh, hello. So my name's Glenda Quinn and I'm a foster carer with OzChild. I live in the southeast and my husband and I have been carers for 27 years. So yeah, do you want me to give you a bit more? Is that enough to start?
That's enough to start. I'm sure that we'll be able to delve a little bit more deeply throughout this session. Thank you, Glenda. 27 years, that's incredible. And next we've got our panelist, Sharon.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you. I'm Sharon Kelly. I'm from Aboriginal Corporation called Nanda up in Echuca. I would like to start by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Wallythigga and Yorta Yorta peoples, the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on today. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today, and also to pay my respects to your elders past, present and emerging. I've been working here at Njernda for 8 months as a recruiter, assessor and trainer for foster care. Njernda's foster care program was established in 2017 from a commitment by the Victorian government for Indigenous children to be cared for by local Aboriginal community controlled organisations, and they're usually called ACOs.
Thank you so much for that, Sharon. That was beautiful. And we've got Tania joining us from MacKillop. Tania, hi.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much for having us. I'm sitting here on Gunditjmara land and I just want to pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. MacKillop's been in operation for about 25 years. I've been working at MacKillop in the home-based care programs for the last 6 years, working directly with foster carers coming through. So recruiting, developing, training and assessing our foster carers. MacKillop operates all across Victoria. We operate in Greater Melbourne. We're all the way out to Bendigo, Geelong and the southwest down here in Warrnambool where I'm sitting. So thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for that, Tania. That's wonderful. And last but certainly not least, we've got Francoise who's coming from SSI. Hi, Francoise.
Oh, hi, Danielle. I would also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Kulin land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hi everyone, I'm Francoise Gall. I'm the Program Manager of the Multicultural Foster Care Program at SSI in Victoria. I've been in foster care for over 20 years and have been fortunate to meet many wonderful carers, children and young people. Settlement Services International, or SSI, was established in 2001 and its core business has been to support cold communities such as refugees, migrants, asylum seekers, children and foster carers. Culture is central to SSI's values and goals, and the Multicultural Foster Care Program was established in 2013 in New South Wales and then in 2020 in Victoria. And the basis was to strengthen the outcomes for children in out-of-home care by focusing on the importance of using culturally responsive practices in responding to children's needs. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Francoise. So as you can see, we've got this wonderful range of panelists here and a number of different agencies across Victoria. Let's dive right into it. So the steps to becoming a foster carer are the same roughly across Victoria, no matter which agency that someone might choose to foster care, to provide care with. This includes attending an information session, running through a number of background checks, completing 16 hours of compulsory training, and undertaking a range of assessments. But every agency works hard to try to make this experience unique. So, can you all tell us about how you like to make the recruitment process special at your agency? And let's start with Francoise from SSI.
Thanks, Danielle. I think for us at SSI, the way that we make the recruitment process unique is by obviously acknowledging where, the culture of the prospective carers that come to the organisation, as it often tells us a story as to why they're wanting to become a foster carer. And then obviously from there building, the rapport and the foundations and the relationship. It's very important for us to connect with, prospective carers that come through. And we take our time to really get to know them and understand why there is that motivation and why they are reaching out. And most of all, I think for our staff, it is about putting themselves in their shoes, because we do have, various people from the communities that come through that may have limited knowledge or understanding or language. So it's really important for us, for our staff to really, walk through that and really understand. So if there is anything that they don't understand about the initial process, that we really take our time and really put it in clear language so that they can understand it.
Thanks, Francoise. I think that that's such a great place to start from, when someone's first walking through the door or picking up the phone, wanting to get to know them and know their story, their motivations, what's made them want to engage with this, and then be able to tailor a recruitment process based on that. That's fantastic. All right, thank you so much. Let's go to Sharon. What makes the recruitment process at Njernda unique?
Well, Danielle, because up here at Nanda, we're a small country organisation, we're very community and family focused. We have that one-on-one contact with people, building relationships with our carers. The training sessions are smaller, making them more personal and family-like. Rather than a training session, they're more like little gatherings. And also, as an Aboriginal organisation, learning about culture and being connected to country is a really important part of our process. So we focus a lot on that.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Sharon. I think it's really important for people to understand that whether you're in a metro area or a regional area, there will be an agency nearby, and the way that agencies run is going to be slightly different based on that. And I know we have a question later and hearing more about, caring for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. So I'm excited to be able to hear more about that too. And then last of all, we've got Tania. How does MacKillop work through this process?
Thanks, Danielle. I think following on from what Francoise and Sharon said, it is really about building rapport with people who are coming in to be prospective foster carers. I think MacKillop do a lot of work in the community before people even inquire to be a foster carer. I think it's important to be out there within our community, to be talking about foster care, to educate the community on why children come into care. People need to make a considered choice when they're coming to be a foster carer. It's not just the adults in the household, it's the family. They're all becoming foster carers and looking after vulnerable children. I think the great thing at MacKillop is we have a centralised phone number. So people don't just have to ring up to make that inquiry. They can ring up to continue to ask questions and to continue to further educate themselves on what foster care is. When they do make that inquiry, though, they're sent to the carer recruitment workers who then begin that journey with them. They continue that journey. It is very personalised. Every person who comes through to be a foster carer is individual and has individual needs. So I think it's about understanding who they are, who their family are, and what their motivation is to become a foster carer. Of course, there's training. And once people become foster carers with MacKillop, there's the support networks that are involved in that, such as Carers Corner.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Tania. And it's great to hear that that process starts really early on, actually working with communities themselves before even expecting people to come through the door. I think that that's such an important point to make. And so now I would like to turn to our foster care at Glenda. Glenda, you've been fostering for over 27 years, which is absolutely fantastic. And one thing I know is that, like many foster carers, you're interested in supporting other foster carers too. So I know that the recruitment process has probably changed a fair bit, but can you give us some examples of how you've helped foster carers during the recruitment process over this period of time?
Sure. So I recommend, if you don't know a foster carer, that you actually, seek one out to have a conversation with. And so I provide that for OzChild prospective foster carers. Look, I've got on, there's some great chats, groups through Facebook as well, that you can ask some random questions to people from all over the country, really, foster carers from all over the country. There's a lot of information out there about what foster care is. So open your eyes, keep it real, and really consider your situation of what you could actually provide. So rather than excuses of why you can't, perhaps think, why not? Give it a go. I certainly didn't start at the age of 24 thinking that I would foster for the next, 27 years. I just thought we'd do it before we'd have our own children and then see what came from there. So it's foster care is so fluid, and you can absolutely, it can suit your lifestyle, that whatever's going on for you at that time. So yeah, I think you might start thinking respite or, really short term or some emergency care, but it evolves into other types of care as well. So what might suit today might not be what's, it might change through the years.
Absolutely, Glenda. I think it's always really important to remember that this is a really dynamic process, and it's designed to fit around what's going to be feasible for foster carers as well. Glenda, just while we've got you, any advice that you give to people about the recruitment process if they're looking at going through it, or they're thinking about it, or maybe anyone who's in the middle of it at the moment?
Yeah, so I definitely think arm yourself with as much information, but don't overwhelm yourself with it as well. So it is not something that happens overnight. You don't make that phone call and have a placement within a week. It is a journey, the whole, for want of a better word, the whole process of becoming a foster carer. So the training is an awesome training package now that's full of lots of so much helpful information, and it's just really the foundation of the training that you really will continue to do through your career as a through the time that you'll foster. You'll meet like-minded people. I just think there's so much the agencies today, the support that they provide, you're certainly not going to be rushed into anything, and to be at your time, at whatever's suiting you and your family at that time. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Glenda. So I'll come back to our awesome agencies now. I want to know, what is the most rewarding part about getting to work with foster carers? It's Foster Care Week. We know how much they put in and how much they give to their community. What are some of the really rewarding experiences that you get out of working directly with foster carers? And maybe this time we'll start with Tania from MacKillop.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, this is probably one of our favourite topics to talk about and celebrate, and especially during Foster Care Week, is our foster carers. They are incredible people. Glenda, pay my respect to you, 27 years fostering. They always put the kids first. I think this is the most rewarding thing as a a carer recruitment worker is getting to know these people when they come through the assessment process, but then to see them with kids and really see, they come to life and they provide childhood opportunities for our kids. And I think that's amazing. I think, over the last 2 years or 18 months, we've seen foster carers take their care to the next level during COVID. We've seen them interact with birth families where we can't have physical contact. They've been able to come up with opportunities where we've seen mums reading stories to their kids, at night time, and being able to be part of meal times. And foster carers provide that opportunity, that connection. They're incredible. One thing though, Danny, that they do say is that we're not incredible. We're just ordinary people, but they are incredible.
I think that's a really great way of putting that, Tania. We know that foster carers sort of choose to be incredible. They're everyday people who are making the choice to do something really incredible, and it is a choice that anyone could make. And we're wonderful examples of sort of caring through COVID-19. I mean, it's hard enough being separated from birth parents, but I know how many foster carers have really gone above and beyond to make sure that they still have, that children and young people in care still have that contact with their birth families. And they've gone above and beyond to nurture that. So I just think that's a wonderful example, Tania. Absolutely. All right, let's go to Francoise from SSI. What is one of the most rewarding parts for you about working with foster carers?
I mean, for me, I think the most rewarding part is from experience is having the privilege to be invited to many carers' homes and hear their life's, experiences of what brought them to foster care and how they can help a child and young person. I think, I've had a lot of discussion with carers, over the years, and it's just really blows my mind as to, how much experience and warmth and love that they can bring to that role. And, amongst the many other things that they do in their lives, if they, with work, with children, other commitments. And I just think, to be part of that is really an amazing journey. And that level of commitment and dedication is really, really great to be part of and witness, I think. But we've just mentioned before with the global pandemic, we're also seeing, carers even inquire and wanting, to put their hand up and become carers. So, that strength and that adaptability has been really, has come across with a lot of carers that come through. And it's also amazing to see their level of generosity to be able to look after a child and a young person. And for us, I mean, a lot of our staff do say, it does take someone really incredible to put their hand up and do that. But that there are a lot of people within the community that do, and we're witnessing it. So it's also being part of that, I suppose, that team approach, that common goal together. And I think that, just to see the outcomes with children, positive outcomes is great.
Absolutely. I think that that's a great point, Francoise. And your point around foster carers doing this while also maintaining jobs, while having biological children in the home, while having responsibilities within their communities, that this isn't people who can fundamentally take their life offline. And I think that that's something that often surprises the public, which is the fact that 2 out of 3 foster carers are actually working full or part-time at the moment. And they're making a decision to undertake care as a component of that and of their everyday life. So I think that that's a fantastic example. Thanks. And then Sharon, what about for you? What is the most rewarding part about working with foster carers?
Definitely adding on to what Francois and Tania has said, like I've seen all that. The passion that the carers have in helping the kids and hearing stories about them, when the carers talk and start getting excited about progress that the children have made, and it's very infectious. Definitely too, I hear carers say, oh, I'm not perfect and I'm so bad at this and everything, but you see the progress that these children are making. And the other thing, yeah, I love seeing them get excited about different things like the progress and even things like, oh, I remembered this in training and I tried this and it worked. Sort of just seeing the progress that's happening and the light bulbs that go on. Like I said, it's infectious. It really is.
Thanks, Sharon. And again, what great examples of just sort of getting to see children and young people thrive and grow and develop and do the things that they need to do to be kids. I just think is such a beautiful part that foster carers do get excited about, don't they? And they really bring that to the table. Thank you. All right, and now let's hear from a foster carer. Glenda, what, from your perspective, is some of the most rewarding experiences you can have as a foster carer? I think we've just got you on mute, Glenda.
I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to do that at some stage. I'm so sorry. I was babbling anyway. It doesn't matter. So clearly, staying as remaining a foster carer for so many years, I get a lot of joy out of it. Far more joy than challenges, to be honest. One story that comes to my mind is a beautiful boy who's now 25, who was 10 when came to live with us for a few months, and he was able to return back home to mum, but we could continue to support, and we shared that the joy of raising him with his mum, which was so wonderful, and we were just so blessed. So she was so grateful for the help that we could provide their family, that when it came to his graduation, there's not many seats that they have available for parents or families. You usually want to invite everyone, but there's usually 1 or 2 seats. She made sure there was always one reserved for me. So anyway, the first Mother's Day that he left our care, she made sure that he called me at the age of 10 and wished me a happy Mother's Day as well. So the joy that brings to us, and just what that's done to my kids. So I think overall, I mean, so many stories of so many children that we've had in our care, but I have to say that I'm most proud of the adults my children have become because of the fact that they've grown up in a foster care family.
That is incredible, Glenda, and not something I think that gets spoken about as much as perhaps it should, which is, as Tania was saying earlier, it's not just one person who becomes a foster carer. The whole household becomes foster carers. And what that means for biological children and young people to be growing up in a household where they're getting that opportunity to connect, to understand, to support and to help someone thrive. I just think that that's a fantastic point to raise around the value of it. And how lovely to hear that even after the care relationship had ended, for that birth parent and that child, they got to have this additional support network and people who cared about them. It's really building a community. And I think a lot of the time when people look at, birth families, that's what's needed, is that support system. So that was beautiful. Thank you. All right. Well, on to the next question, and this one's very much going to be for Sharon at Njernda. So caring for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and young people is a privilege. Where possible here in Victoria, we aim to have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and young people in care of their extended family or with members of their community. But when that's not possible, foster carers from all walks of life can step in and provide a culturally safe home and support children and young people in having positive life experiences that are culturally and socially and emotionally safe. And that's why we're going to turn to Sharon now. Sharon, you mentioned before that Njernda is an Aboriginal community controlled organisation. Could you give us a bit of an idea of what is unique about fostering with an ACCO?
Well, because obviously our foster children are Aboriginal children, you are welcomed into the Aboriginal community. Like the Aboriginal community really do appreciate you caring for their children and you're welcomed into that community and invited to community events and cultural days and things like that. We're a pretty friendly and laid back mob. The most unique thing I would say is the family feel that we have and the cultural focus training and staying connected to country, to your mob. Yeah, so it's that welcoming into the community.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Sharon. And I think it's important for prospective foster carers, but also for the community at large, to know what sort of support and training do foster carers of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children receive, and how is this potentially different from the mainstream training that's provided?
Right. Well, we have extra training around cultural sensitivity and awareness. We have a training called Our Carers for Our Kids. This teaches about Aboriginal history and culture, and being sensitive to the past. We have access to cultural events, gatherings, community events. Even when you're applying to be a carer, you still get invited to these things, to, you know, NAIDOC and Reconciliation Week events. And there's also extra cultural training available that you can do further on, like Nakara's journey. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon. And I know that Nakara's journey is often spoken about as a really profound way of working through what it looks like to need to go into care, particularly from that cultural perspective as well. So thank you for that. All right. So when we look at the recruitment process, like I flagged, it often starts with picking up the phone and making a call, attending information sessions, working through checks, some of that training, and then you move on to the assessment process, where once you've worked through a range of assessments, which include house visits and lots of discussions about foster care and what it means for you and your family, then you go through to accreditation. So after you've been accredited as a foster carer, that's when you wait for the phone to ring and there's a placement. So for our agencies, what sort of support do brand new foster carers receive after the accreditation process and during their first placement? And I'll start this one with Francoise from SSI.
The support that our carers receive is we would actually make that phone contact with them, obviously welcoming them to the agency, and also going out there, making a time to go out with them and meet with them. Obviously, you know, at the moment we do that virtually, but then through that process of meeting with them, it's more about welcoming them to the agency. So really going through what are some of the things that they would need to be mindful of now that they're a carer, and really doing that induction work with them, and unpacking again, what their role is and their responsibility is, as well as the organisations. And there, I think for us, it's about really coming to an understanding, and really guiding them through what the next, few months would look like. But there's always that checking that we do, the phone contact, and really going through the information with them and making sure that they understand it. I mean, they're all very excited, can't wait to start a placement. So it's really ensuring that they're well prepared. So if there's anything there in their home that they do need, that we will make sure that they do have that. And then obviously ongoing training that's coming up. So it's really making sure that they feel comfortable and equipped enough from what they've learned in the training, but also through their assessment phase, that we can meet that need and have those conversations. So in that time that they are waiting, really talk to them about some of the kids that we see coming through the system, and really so then they can get I suppose an understanding of some of the needs that really it does, change at times. So it's really important they do know the needs that the kids come with.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Francoise. And I think that that's such a great example of how, it's an ongoing relationship, and that agencies do work quite hard to make sure that their foster carers are feeling really settled and supported, and that they understand that there's a degree of sort of nervousness and excitement, especially when your first placement is coming up. So thank you. Tania, from your perspective, what do MacKillop do in supporting foster carers when they're sort of just finishing up that accreditation process, they've gotten accredited and they're waiting for their first placement? What sort of support can they expect during placement?
Yeah, great question. And I think support really starts, Danielle, right back when people first inquire to be foster carers. One of the things that we would say to people coming through is you need to make sure that you do feel supported, that it's the right fit for you. Fostering is about becoming part of a team. You don't foster on your own. So you need to know what those supports are and make sure they fit in with you. One of the things that we do with applicants through the assessment process is allow them the opportunity to understand what their own support networks are. So support doesn't always just come from the agency itself. Support comes from their community that they have around them. So it's about understanding what supports could be available through there. I think coming through the assessment process, becoming accredited, receiving your first placement, that's right, as Francois said, it's such an exciting time. The team come out and really do that one-on-one work with you. I think, though, when we train carers to be trauma-informed foster carers, I think that's where real support comes in, support not only for the carers, but for the children. And I think when the carers can understand what the needs are that the children have, that's where the best support comes in. One of the things that I've seen change dramatically for MacKillop carers over the last couple of years is the introduction to clinical services within our home-based care teams. So allowing foster carers to have access to clinical therapists has had a dramatic change to support foster carers are receiving.
That's really interesting, Tania, and I know that you're saying that you've been in that team for quite a while. Sorry, just to ask you one more question there. Can you tell us what some of the difference is when there's that sort of support in place?
I think all of our children now in Victoria are receiving therapeutic plans. So when the therapeutic specialists are working with the children, they're working side by side with the foster carers. The foster carers are seeing another side to what has happened to these children, what they've experienced, and what behaviours might be coming out as a result. So they're equipped, they're ready, they're using their therapeutic practices that they're learning within training. And they're being able to apply that, but it's not a judgment. They're able to apply these different strategies that they've learned and really see the rewards with the kids. But if they haven't got it right or it's not working, those therapeutic specialists are there to try and nut out another way to figure this out. So it's teamwork and it's support, and they're not there on their own.
That's a really great point, Tania. The same thing isn't going to work for every child, whether or not they're in care. So making sure there is that access to different supports for alternatives to be explored and for that understanding to come through must just be so critical. So thank you for that. And Sharon, from your perspective, what sort of support do foster carers receive during that accreditation process and during placement?
Okay, from the very start, they're introduced to the caseworker and myself, and they do have direct number to me, and when they're fostering they have the direct number to the caseworkers, so they will always be contacting the same people all the time and know that they will be speaking to us. I have the casework support worker attends different things like information sessions and training, so you get to know us both all the way through. And we're very adaptable. We let people move at their own pace, and we support their needs. We also have a therapy counsellor at Njernda if people need that sort of support. We have an after hours number they get, if you're a full-time carer, you get your respite support. And we always work in what's in the best interest of the child as a team. Like, we like to have that teamwork. And also, I know our case support worker always makes sure that the carers are looked after and practice self-care as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sharon, and I think it goes back to what the others were saying as well around, you know, there's the support from the agency, and then there's also the supports that are hopefully around the carer. And isn't that one of the main goals in a lot of what we're trying to do at the moment, which is make sure that the general community understands what foster care is, so that if someone in their community decides to become a carer, they can turn around and say, I'm here, I know what this is about, I can help out. So it's not just that person on their own. That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
And then Glenda, you having been in foster care for quite a long time, what are some of the supports that you've received as a foster carer? What are some of the most useful things that can be in place for foster carers to help them?
Yeah, so I think I've been across 2 agencies, because we used to live in one suburb and we've moved to another. And they used to be quite divided with their regions. So we've been across 2, and I've managed to have great relationships with all of my workers from both agencies. So I think developing that relationship with your worker is really important, that you can actually debrief with them at any time, offload whatever's going on in your mind without fear of judgment, without concern that they're going to, you know, call the CAT team because it sounds like you're losing it. You need to be able to offload and just get those things off your chest, and then move on, and whatever supports need to go in place to smooth things out. So I think that's why we've managed to stay remain fostering for so long, because of those great relationships that we've had. And then on a personal level, like my parents, I'm from a Dutch heritage, and so my parents are Uma and Upa to my father's passed away, but my mum is still Uma to many, 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 many children, and they have been accepting and happy to accept whatever extras we have, even if they arrive on Christmas morning. So there's always a spare present cupboard that, you know, that mum will raid and make sure that every child is well spoiled there. And my friends, like, what, you know, you really do, you'll find some friends might not be on that journey with you, but that, you know, the ones that are on that journey with you are your true friends. They're your like-minded people that you really want to, you know, have in your life forever. So we have some amazing friends that I can, if we're planning to go for a party or a gathering, when we can ever do that again, you know, they're open to any extras that might be with us. You know, there's no surprise and no concerns. They're always welcoming to anyone that comes along with Paul and I, which is great. So it's wonderful to see other people in the community, you know, so warm and so lovely. They sort of say, oh, we couldn't foster, but, you know, they support us to enable us to be able to do what we do. So I'm so grateful of that community that's around me. So I'm very lucky.
I just think that's absolutely beautiful, Glenda, and such a great example of what we were just talking about, which is that, you know, there are always ways to provide support, and even if you're not doing foster care directly, by being someone in a foster carer's life who first and foremost understands, you know, they know that events might need to change, they know that things might happen on short notice, but also is involved and is welcoming and you know, is supportive of those situations. I mean, clearly there's been some fantastic people around to make it possible to foster for nearly 3 decades. And I just think that that's a lovely example of how, even if someone's not sure that they're ready to take that journey, they can still support someone else in it and actually be a really important person in that carer's life. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, before I move on to the next question, just a reminder, if any of our viewers do have any questions, you're very welcome to pop them in the chat. We will try to get through to these at the end. And now going to move on to another area a little bit. Victoria is one of the most diverse states in Australia, and as such, so are the children who come into care. So this one I want to ask Francoise from SSI directly, because of the nature of the foster care program that you provide. How can foster carers create culturally safe environments for multicultural and multi-faith children and young people in care? We know it's not always possible to place that child with someone from the same community as them. We know that sometimes that's not even what's going to be, you know, the most responsible thing to do for that particular child. But how can foster carers make sure that they're supporting that child's cultural identity, their background, and being a safe space for them?
So for us here at SSI, we do, you know, when a child does come into care, we look at the placement matching is really important for us, and the elements that make up that matching, apart from the normal elements, would be that, you know, the faith, the ethnicity and language. And sometimes we may not be able to match, you know, all the time on that basis. So what we would, you know, encourage our carer families to do is explore other ways, and that could be just by looking at various, I suppose, practices within their home settings. So around food, around rituals or events that they have. And really, I suppose for us, what we do is give that information to our carers as specific cultural events that are celebrated, faith events. The part of our model is we do have, you know, bilingual workers that do come in. So if we can't match, you know, a child or young person according to their culture with a carer of the same culture, we do look at our bilingual workers that would assist, and their role would be around that culture. So really having that time with that child and young person, and really doing, you know, activities around their culture and taking them to events. So it's really about making sure that you have like books, you know, we say to carers, having books or movies. There are certain, you know, music. So it's just really ensuring that we do have that open lens and of that acceptance and respect. But definitely it's at the point, I think, of our matching, because we do know from that point what's needed for that particular child and young person, and that assists us with preparing the carer as well.
Thanks for that, Francois. And one of the things I'll note is I think you've got, you know, some really specific examples there of actually very small things that carers can do that would really help build a safe environment or help a child or young person feel very welcome into the home. So things like having books, things like identifying, you know, what are some of the dishes that they used to like getting cooked, how can we incorporate that, or what are some of the events that celebrate this child's culture or that are relevant to their faith, how can we incorporate that and make sure that they do feel welcomed and supported in the foster household while they are there. So thank you so much for that. We've got a question here that's come through, which is what practices are agencies taking to ensure the emotional needs of carers are at the forefront? Are there any practices specifically to connect carers with one another other than on Facebook? I think this is a great question, because I think everything that everyone said is that, you know, this is a network, this is a support system, this is a community. So I'm excited to hear people's answers. Maybe Tania, sorry to pop you on the spot, but we'll start with you if that's okay. What sort of does MacKillop do in helping carers connect with one another?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think one of the things that's really stood out for us is peer support is so important. So where you've got sector support coming in, you've got agencies there to support, you've got family to support. No one knows it better than another foster carer, you know, what you're going through. So I think being able to have those connections at MacKillop during COVID, when no one could see each other face to face, because that's what you really want, is those opportunities to meet up face to face. We developed an initiative called Carers Corner, where once a month in each of the regions across Victoria, carers have got the opportunity to jump online and chat to each other. It's really informal. Sometimes you might do a little bit of training or answer some questions that might be going on. The case managers are there, but it's that real opportunity for that peer support, that one-on-one connection. I think during the assessment process too, that's really important to have access to foster carers as well. So another initiative was we developed the online information sessions. When you're thinking about becoming a foster carer, you're talking directly to a foster carer to find that out. So I think along your journey, that peer support is really important, and being able to have those connections. Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Tania. And you know, great example of even through lockdowns, there have still been ways of making sure that carers get to stay connected with one another. Sharon, from your perspective, how do carers at Njernda stay connected?
Well, COVID allowing, they've had carer lunch days and the cultural days and things like that they have for the carers to connect.
And I'm sure, hopefully, that those events are kicking back on soon, so that people can get back to enjoying them. Francoise, what about at SSI?
Yeah, I think it's very much for what Tania and Sharon has said, very much really identifying along the way where we could do, a bit of that buddying system where they do, connect with existing carers. There's that connection there, and that support, that peer support is so important. Also through the staff too, just reaching out if there is, that's why it's so important for us to keep that engagement, that we are, if there is anything on their mind, that they can pick up the phone and give us a call, and but there's also their peers there to assist. I mean, we work with community leaders as well, so there is that opportunity if it is, within their own faith or community, that we do, work closely with leaders, so that if a carer does approach them, then they're well equipped to, to respond as well. So yeah, there's various forms that, of peer networking and connection.
Yeah, thanks, Francoise. And what a great example of, another outreach into the community initiative, whereby making sure that community leaders know what foster care is about, they know what this carer might be going through, they're going to be better equipped to be able to provide that support that might be exactly what that carer needs. So thank you, that's a great example. Glenda, just from your perspective, what sort of practices have you been a part of that have been about helping carers to connect with one another?
So this has been obviously very challenging through, and even in our non-lockdown times, we've been almost a bit frightened to get together. So we did a few outdoor things in between lockdowns at OzChild. But otherwise, we do a lot. We have a book club, we have a blokes night. There's a lot of online forum. We were doing a coffee catch up or a wine night or whatever quite regularly, especially early on, because it was a bit of a culture shock for all of us, I think, to be locked down. So and they were well visited, but I think that dropped off as people found it some normality in the lockdown, I guess. But we have a peer support program which I am a coordinator of at OzChild, funnily enough, and it's a buddy program, and I'm very passionate about that. So we definitely match all our new foster carers with somebody in your your area. And when we do come back together and have our carer dinners and our trainings and our face-to-face things, that we hope that you actually will share a car ride to these events or whatever. But otherwise, you've just got that phone contact, that somebody at the end of the line that gets it. It's not just 9 to 5. It's can be later on than that, and or the weekends, and they just understand. Sometimes you just want to vent, and you just want to or you might want some strategies. Most of the time you just want somebody to listen to you. So yeah, I think that's really, really, really helpful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Glenda. And that buddy program is such a great example of making sure that the carer isn't on their own, and that they do get matched up with someone who has, hopefully a bit more experience or more understanding of what it's like to be a carer, because, everyone else can talk about it until they're blue in the face, but the reality is that the person that's probably best to in some circumstances is going to be another foster carer. So that's a wonderful example. Thank you. We've had another question come through, which is how has the recruitment process changed during COVID-19? And I'll turn to our agencies for this one. And I think let's start with Sharon this time.
Okay, so I've only recruited with COVID-19.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
So it's been an online thing, like I'll call people, we connect with Zoom, and everything's been online. Yeah.
Thank you. And Tania?
Yeah, agree with Sharon. It was, I remember sitting here when we went into our very first lockdown thinking, how are we going to do this? And the fact that an agency can completely flip their recruitment process within 24 hours is just outstanding. So yeah, most things have gone online. So assessments are online, training is online. To be honest though, I've seen a lot of flexibility come out of some of the different practices as a result of COVID-19, and some that I hope in Victoria we can keep going or modify when we're finally out of COVID-19. So yeah, it has completely changed. We haven't had any negative feedback around experiences. So maybe people don't, know what was different from beforehand, but yeah, definite changes, but outcomes still pretty great.
And a great point, Tania, which is that, like a lot of stuff at the moment, yes, there've been some losses, but it has also meant in some ways, training online and doing a lot of the assessments online does mean less travel time. It means more flexibility, and it has meant that more carers have been able to progress who maybe would have had to delay parts of their training otherwise. So I think that's a great point. And Francoise?
Yeah, for us it's very similar. Everything's transferred to virtual, online. I think for us the difference too is our approach and our response. I mean, now when prospective carers do call in, it is about checking how they're going, with lockdown. So it's that extra element of engagement where before, you wouldn't have to talk about, lockdown or COVID. So the conversations there are really initially centered around that. And just really being mindful, I suppose, that, everyone is coping the best of the way they can, during COVID. And there will be times where you may not hear from a carer, and just really giving them that space, but really still connecting with them. So I think for us, at that inquiry stage, that's really important, because we may not hear from some, carers initially, but then gradually, we get back in contact. So it's really being mindful of that and really going at their pace, because everyone's, it's impacted by it differently. So really being sensitive around that.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Francoise, which is that people are experiencing this differently, and it's important to be aware of that and to know what the best form of connection is going to be for that particular carer. So excellent point. All right, well, look, just before we wrap up, it would be great to hear if anyone would like to give a message to foster carers this foster care week. Glenda, I might start with you.
My message is, there's no halo above my head, certainly not. And we are normal people. And if you think that you could, then start the process and really just be curious, start looking into it, because you'll be amazed how it enriches your life and the life of your family and your friends. As I say, the joy that you all can get from fostering is pretty immense. It's like nothing else. So go for it, do it.
Thanks so much for that, Glenda. That was beautiful. And Tania?
I think my message for potential foster carers is yes, do it. These kids are real, that they are in our community. They need our support now, and we need people to say, yep, I'm going to give fostering a go. So I encourage anyone, if I had the words of, one of our foster carers, he just says, just do it. He goes, have a child, see how you go, see if it works for you. So yeah, really consider it and find out, you've got questions, get them answered. Yeah.
Yeah, great point, Tania, and links back to Glenda's really well. Be curious, get your questions answered. That's it. And Francoise?
Yeah, just going on from what Glenda and Tania said as well, I would say just reach out. It doesn't matter what background or where you're from. If you have a question and you know, inclination or curious, you know, just pick up the phone and ring, because there are a lot of organisations there that are willing to make that answer and, yeah, answer those questions rather than sit and wonder. So reach out.
Yeah, thank you. And Sharon, message for foster carers this foster care week.
I would say if you've been thinking about it for a while, I might like to do that. Reach out now and do it. Don't wait until you're perfect or the perfect time, because there won't ever be a perfect time or a perfect thing. No one's perfect. Just go out and do it. Kids need to see that, you know, other people have imperfect times too. And also the other thing is referring to the Aboriginal side of things. You do not have to be Aboriginal to look after Aboriginal children. We do accept people from all cultures, all walks of life. So, yeah, just take the leap, do it.
That's a great point, Sharon. Thank you so much for raising that. That is a question that we get that does come up. But again, you don't have to be from a specific community, a specific background, whether you're partnered or single, however you identify, you have the opportunity and the capacity to make life very different for a child, a young person and their family in your community. So, well, look, that is all the time we have for today, everyone. I would like to extend a huge thank you to our panellists for joining us today and for sharing their experiences, as well as to everyone who's been joining us throughout this live stream or who might be watching it later. Most of all, I think I'd like to say a massive thank you to all the current foster carers who are out there making a difference for children and families across Victoria. They have been doing it through COVID. They have been doing it through bushfires. They have been doing it through all sorts of circumstances, including their own personal life circumstances. And I really don't think we can say a big enough thank you to that particular cohort. So this has been our Foster Care Week panel. If you're interested in learning more about foster care, you can contact an agency in your area, or you're very welcome to give Fostering Connections a call on 1800 013 088 or visit fosteringconnections.com.au. Stay safe and thank you so much for joining us. Happy Foster Care Week.